Let's try one more. This one is an unusual fact pattern. When I first read it and tried to spot the issues, I wound up not spotting very many of the issues I decided I would eventually have to write about. And I'm going to go through it just that way. This one on a bar exam, a 1-hour essay, was the kind of hypothetical that freaked everyone out. It was difficult to organize the issues and to spot them all. What we have is a call that says who owns Blackacre. So you're thinking when you see that, aha, straight property. Now we look at the facts and we see Olga, a widow, owned Blackacre, a lakeside lot and cottage. On her 70th birthday, she had a pleasant reunion with her niece, Nan, and decided to give Blackacre to Nan. Olga had a valid will leaving to my 3 children in equal shares all the property I own at my death. Okay, so now I'm not so sure it's a straight property. I don't usually see the verbiage in a will in a property hypothetical. This is some sort of a transfer of land, but is it by deed? Is it by will? What's happening here? She did not want her children to know of the gift to Nan while she was alive, nor did she want to change her will. Olga asked Bruce, a friend, for help in the matter. Bruce furnished Olga with a deed form. So this is a friend. Does not sound like an independent third-party agent. This is a friend who furnished her with a deed form that by its terms would affect a present conveyance. So I know that conveyancing is a big issue in this hypothetical. What do we need to effect a conveyance? Well, we need a valid deed. The deed has to comply with the statute of frauds, and we need a present delivery. Acceptance, well, if we have a present delivery, the presumption is that the deed is going to be accepted. But I'm going to want to discuss what it takes to have a valid deed. The elements are a description of the property, identity of the parties, words indicating present intent to convey, and it has to be signed by the grantor. That's what we get in this paragraph. She named herself as grantor, Nan as grantee. She designated Blackacre as the property conveyed. She included an accurate description of Blackacre, and she signed it. And we have the fact that Bruce, who is a notary, acknowledged her signature. So Bruce is not just a friend, he's a notary, and he has formally acknowledged her signature. Looks like we have a valid deed. I need to remember to talk about this statute of frauds. But she said to Bruce, hold this deed and record it if Nan survives me. And then it goes on to say that Nan knew nothing of this transaction. If Nan survives me, that's a conditional statement, which means that this is a conditional delivery. So now I know that I need to analyze whether Bruce is a third-party independent agent. Because if he is, then a conditional delivery will work, because Nan will have been delivering this with no right to reclaim it. In other words, she will have been relinquishing all control to Bruce. So is Bruce an independent third-party agent? He's her friend. He's also a notary who acknowledged her signature. I'm not sure what Bruce is at this point. I could argue it either way. As time passed, Olga saw little of Nan. One day she called Bruce on the telephone, told him to destroy the deed. So she thinks he's not independent. However, Bruce did not destroy the deed. So he apparently thinks he is an independent agent, and there was a completed delivery. A week later, Olga died. So I have a really complex analysis here about whether Bruce is an independent third-party agent, and so I have an effective conditional delivery, or whether he is not, in which case there was no delivery because you can't retain an interest. Nan learned of the transaction when Bruce sent her the deed which he had by then recorded. Further evidence that he thought he was an independent third-party agent. Nan was delighted with the gift, is planning to move to Blackacre. Olga never changed her will, and it was in effect on the day of her death. Who owns Blackacre? Okay, so now, if I'm on the bar exam, I'm sitting here thinking, all right, the obvious issues are, is this a valid deed? Was this a conditional delivery to a third-party independent agent or not? But what do I do with the will? That causes me a big problem. Obviously, I'm supposed to deal with it. If there was no effective delivery, in other words, if Bruce was not an independent third-party agent, then the will would control, wouldn't it? And as I sit here thinking about that, I realize one of the big things I have to remember about a hypothetical involving wills law is that I have to look at every writing and analyze whether that writing is actually a codicil. Is it actually an alteration to the will? And in order to be that, it would have to meet either the will's formalities or the requirements of a holographic will. This exam came from California, so I'm real familiar with the requirements in California. Look at the deed which Olga signed and analyze whether that deed is a codicil, a change to Olga's will. It does not meet the will's formalities in California, and the problem with trying to claim it's a holograph is that I don't see any words that indicate intent to dispose of property at death in that deed form. So I think it fails as a holograph as well. So I think the will still controls the original will. Had I found that it was a valid codicil, then her phone call to Bruce telling him to destroy the deed would be an attempt at revocation of that codicil, but that fails because it was not in her presence and at her direction. So the issue is whether Bruce was an independent third-party agent, in which case that delivery to Nan as of Olga's death was effective and Nan can claim the property, or was Bruce a friend who disobeyed Nan's wishes, and so there never was any delivery of the deed, and the children own Blackacre. What's the final answer? It hinges on that question. There's a lot of evidence for Bruce acting as an independent third-party agent. So I think Nan has a very strong argument that she now owns Blackacre. But I have to remember all of those issues that I need to analyze, as well as the ones I originally spotted on my first walk through this hypothetical. This is a crossover between property and wills. And when you think about it, those fit together because they're all about successions in interest to property, and we frequently transfer property by testamentary instrument at death. Difficult hypothetical. It, as I said, freaked out a lot of people on the bar exam, and I think one of the things I want to say to you, if you are watching this as a bar candidate or as a person who is about to take a final exam in property law, is that if you have prepared well, if you've worked through quite a few past hypotheticals from your jurisdiction, whether that's a law class or a state, a state bar, if you have prepared well and you have made yourself familiar with the typical hypotheticals and how they're to be answered to score well in your jurisdiction, then, and you come across one like this that seems tremendously more complex or more difficult than you expected, then you should know that the rest of the people who are taking your exam are going to be experiencing the same thing. And the grading is going to be, I don't want to say much more lenient, but there will have to be much more room for analysis and interpretation here. It will not hinge on how sophisticated your writing and your wording and your order of the issues is. You will have a lot more leeway to get a good score because everyone found it so difficult. As I've said before, if this kind of analysis and issue spotting is helping you, if it's of value to you, please help us get the word out by sharing this video with others so that we can increase our audience for this channel and know that we should continue this kind of work to help you with your exam prep.